Hello loves, in the last video we went through a full skin prep routine. So this was learning how to prep the skin to get the most flawless and long-lasting makeup application possible. We are continuing with our education in this video and we are going to be learning how to apply our foundation correctly and how to set it. Now, lots of people prefer to apply their foundation with a sponge or maybe even with their fingertips. That's absolutely fine. Again, as with our skincare, if you're prone to redness, I would recommend to avoid rubbing as much as possible and be as gentle as possible on the skin. I like to apply my foundation with a soft bristle brush that kind of behaves a little bit like a sponge, and I can bounce it off the skin. And what I like about it is that I can move the product around, and it also gives me an opportunity to build up extra product where I need it. It's just personal preference, really. Okay, so to start our foundation application, we want to think of the face in two sections. So we've got the central section in the middle, and then we have the outer section of the face. We do not want too much product on the outer section of the face, because if we do that, we're going to get a build-up around our hairline and around our ears and around our jawline. We want the majority of the product in the centre of the face where we want more coverage. Okay, so I would always avoid starting directly on the nose, because then you've got a lot of effort to move the product around. I would be more tempted to start here in the main section in the middle of the face, because again, that's normally where we want most coverage. So we can start in the centre of the face. I've just put the product on my brush, and we can just start to move outwards. Now, wherever we plant the product first, that's where the majority of it is going to go, and then we're kind of diffusing it as we go. So now I know it's a little diffused, I'm going to start to bring that over my nose. And you can see I'm using a sort of bouncing action. And I'm not going to apply any more product to my brush yet. All I'm going to do is move about the product that's there. And because we did all that lovely skin prep, you can see that that foundation is just sitting beautifully on top of the centre of the face. And now I'm on the outside of the face. I'm just literally putting those last bits of product. I'm going to pick up a bit more product on my brush, and I'm going to go back and start in the centre and continue to work outwards. So we start in the centre again and then start to move out. I'm going to do the same on this side. So you go back to the centre and move out. So what you're always doing is diffusing the product. Now you'll notice that I haven't actually gone over my eyes at this point. Now your eyes are the oiliest thing on your face. They have to be, because they have to flex to move for you to open and close your eyelids. So I could go over my eyes now with my foundation, but to be honest, the oil is going to break it down very, very quickly. So it's kind of pointless, really. You'll notice that I'm just using sweeping motions. And one of the things I'll often do, and you can do this if you're applying with a brush, and I always apply my own foundation with a brush, but I also apply all my clients' foundations with a brush as well. One of the things that you can do is change where you hold the brush, because this will alter how much you distribute the product. And now that I've done the majority of my coverage, I'm just going to run the product gently over and under my eye area. Now, assuming that you are using a foundation that's quite buildable, and anything really that's sort of mid to full coverage should be quite buildable. You know, anything that's not overly oily should be quite buildable. What you can do now is, with whatever's left on your brush or picking up a tiny bit of extra product, you can just go and add product just where you feel like you need it. And by being gentle and not using a harsh rubbing action, we're avoiding undoing all that work we did with the colour correction, because if we're too rough with our brush or our sponge, all those creamy colours that we placed underneath are just going to move around and they're not going to be where we want them to be. Make sure that if you're using foundation to combat any redness and to even out your skin tone, that you don't forget about the ears. People forget about the ears all the time, and lots of people have lovely even skin tones on their face and neck, and the ears tend to be very pink, so just be careful with that. And now we have a very even base to apply the rest of our makeup. Okay, so assuming that we're not overly dry, what we might want to do now is apply some translucent powder. So because I do tend to be quite dry in that central area, I'm going to take a little bit of my translucent powder and I'm just going to place that in the area where I know I have a tendency to get oily. I'm going to avoid placing it under my eye area at the moment. I really don't want to get any lines or wrinkles under the eye area, so I want the product to stay nice and soft. The temptation often is to add a load of powder to set the product in the hope that we won't get any creasing under the eye. That doesn't really work. Actually, the more softness we have under the eye, so the more flex we have in our product, the less likely it is to settle. Once we dry it out, it's really going to want to settle in any lines and creases. So you want to keep that soft and moist. So for a really flawless finish, once we've applied that translucent powder in the area we know we absolutely need it. Now you might not need to do that if you're not someone who's going to be particularly oily, or if you are, or your client is quite dry. One thing we can do is use a powder foundation to just buff that into the product. So that's something that it's not a translucent powder, it's another layer of coverage essentially, but it's just going to give us a slightly more airbrushed finish. So I'm just going to tap off the excess of that product. And again, I'm just going to bounce that in. And this can be quite nice to just bring across the top of the eye and over the lid to just set the product. And I'm just gently bouncing that product onto the skin. And we have our perfect, even, holistic base ready for the rest of our makeup.